All right, it's 4 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the June 14th meeting, 2022, the Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation. First on the agenda is to take public communication. Who would like to go first? Really? I knew Janice would come.
Haven't been Janice Lowe.
Aubrey, you going to start the timer?
Yeah, and
Awesome.
just for the heads up for anyone speaking from the public, this is going to be much like
Council.
from council. So you'll have the 3 lights there. You'll have 3 minutes, and it'll let you know when you're running low or time to stop.
Haven't attended one of your meetings since before COVID, so glad to see everyone back in action here. But I was somewhat shocked at some of the action that I've seen that's coming forward to you today, which is an agreement asking you to fund a project here in the city for a substantial change to Stevenson Park, of which I'm very personal to Stevenson Park. I would question I'm assuming you have the document called the agreement, and I would question, and I'm glad the attorney's here, that a city committee can create a agreement to the corporation that's any standing without council approval, and I would understand this has not been before council. Secondly, I'd bring up that the intent of the Downtown Corporation, of which I totally support, has always been to inure to the benefit of existing or expanding businesses, bringing businesses here. That's what the creation was all about. So removing the parking lot at Stevenson Park doesn't seem to be anything that will bring a business to Friendswood. So I'm not sure that it's in your form to be spending your sales tax dollars that you receive from us on that. And many people are happy to have the parking lot be as it is. I thought it was 73 parking spaces. I was corrected. I think it's 79. This project would reduce that quite substantially, if not at all, but we have yet that to be seen. But a lot of people like the parking lot serving Stevenson Park as it is today. Thanks.
Thank you, Janice. Any other further communications from the public? Here we go.
Good afternoon, Board. Rep Banfield, longtime developer, and as you know, longtime advocate for downtown Friendswood. I also am here to speak on the forthcoming proposal from KFB in regards to Fire Station 1, as currently known as, in regards to the permanent plan for that. I do not know what that vision is, and I hope it's a good one, though I am excited to see something finally going to come to the top and do something with that place. I'd like to offer another perspective on that as you make your decision this evening, this afternoon, on whether to fund a next step to start planning for what to do at that site. That site is 1.2 acres, about 55,000 square feet. And if you look at it just at its own, it's in the park system where it will always remain forever. But if you look at it as a standalone piece of property, it's, as I said, 55,000 square feet, great ingress, egress on the downtown Friendswood Drive, getting better by the day, thanks to y'all. It's surrounded by the beautiful Stevenson Park, and it's flanked by this good-looking building. In the development world, in the free market world, that would be considered prime Class A property, probably valued around between 15 and 18 bucks a square foot. Meaning that property, if it could be offered up to the free market, would have a value somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million. Of course, it can never be sold. The point I'm trying to make is it's a very valuable asset for the city. We're lucky to have that. The Parks Department's lucky to have this asset. The city's lucky to have this asset. And it has so much potential besides this being a parking lot. No developer in their right mind would take $1 million piece of property and make it all parking, as it's such an underutilization of the land. Yes, parking is needed. It is beneficial. And would it help Stevenson? It could be a component of the overall final plan for that area. But it should be, in my opinion, an expansion and extension of Stevenson Park into that area, not an expansion, extension of City Hall parking. When we launched our development 161, we employed Page Southern Page, world-renowned architect, and they said, the first thing they said to us, hide the bumpers. When you're going to do something of great development, you don't want people seeing the cars. It distracts from the beauty of development. That so aptly applies here. We have the beautiful Stevenson Park. Why we want to stack rows and rows of cars in front of it? This creates something beautiful there. It has so much potential. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
I hadn't planned to speak, but Brett brought up a good point. He started it on Facebook. My question is, what is value and what is worth to you guys, to the city? What value is to the people is not the $1 million space there. The value to the citizens of Friendswood, the residents, the ones who are funding y'all, the worth, ask yourselves, what is that parking lot worth to the residents of Friendswood? Not to Friends of Downtown Friendswood, not to KFB, and not to y'all. Think about, for a change, the citizens. What is the worth to them?
Thank you. Any further communication from the book? Yes.
Hi, Lori Foreman, founding member FDFA, just to be real clear. Just wanted to bring you up on some of the things that FDFA has been doing, and KFB has been so kind to include us in some of their meetings. And but we did have a possibilities workshop where we looked at a lot of pictures, and everybody had dots about how they were going to rate things and what they liked and what did they want to see in their downtown. And they really want green. They really want green. They love their park. They love being there. They want to spend more time in that park with their families. They wanted green. They wanted water features. They wanted green consciousness for the construction, to include bioswales, to include green parking lots. So I'm really hoping that we're going to see some cool stuff and that it'll appeal to everyone.
All right. Any further communication from the public? Okay, hearing none. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Has everybody on the board had a chance to review the minutes? I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the minutes. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Showed as unanimous. And now, item number 4 on the work sessions items is to receive a presentation from Keep Friendswood Beautiful concerning the Stephen Park Conceptual Design Plan.
Hi, everyone. How are we feeling?
Good.
Good. I'm Kelly Browning. I am the lucky and blessed Parks Board Chairperson for KFB. And I just wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of kind of how we got to this point today to make this request of you. And back in 2021, KFB won this prestigious award that was $250,000 through, GCAA. It's called the Governor's Community Achievement Award. And we were awarded that to beautify a Texas dot something. And we had 3 parts to that project that we wanted to do, that we decided as a committee that represents the public to do. And those 3 things were to beautify the medians in between Stevenson Park, really at Cowards Creek, all the way down to League City over by Eagle Lakes. And then the second part of that was a beautiful entryway into Stevenson Park, welcoming community members into the park, and then also revamping the bridges around the city. So once we started thinking about this beautiful archway into a parking lot, we started to dream bigger. And we wanted to see what else we could do to serve our community and the young families in our city and our longtime members who want to enjoy these spaces. And that's where we got into Half Associates. So we kind of invited them and welcomed them to give us some conceptual ideas of what even could we dream about. We're not exactly sure. And they gave us some just rough ideas, and they're going to talk to you guys about those rough sketches and ideas today. And the hope is that you guys would see these dreams and these visions as attainable things that we can do, and once we get started, we'll be able to bring these ideas to the public, gain public feedback, and really work together as a community to make Stevenson Park a place that we all love and continue to love and enjoy. So I'm going to let Casey take it away to introduce his ideas to you.
Good afternoon. I'm Casey Collins with Half Associates. I'm a landscape architect with a lot of park experience. Excited to kind of go over some of these ideas with you. Not familiar with who all is familiar with this park, so just for orientation purposes, we put together an existing conditions exhibit, kind of notifying every aspect of Stevenson Park as it is currently. I want to draw to your attention the existing drainage ditch because we're going to be focusing on that, as well as the restroom location and the existing mechanical yard. So as stated, we were invited to present some ideas, came up with 4 rough concepts just to get a conversation started. And then we met with Kimberly and James. So the next slide there. This is concept A. A lot of our focus, knowing that parking is premium for the overall park, we wanted to try to maintain as much parking as possible. So the idea here is you have a central plaza with an amphitheater to the north, and then we still preserve parking spaces along the perimeter. So we're trying to bring the pedestrian and the vehicular realm together. We'll bypass this one because it wasn't a preferred concept. Concept B, taking that same sort of idea, but creating more of a round type of a concept, type of a scheme. So these are very rough. Again, we're just trying to generate some conversation. Concept C takes that idea and kind of rotates the amphitheater in a 45, still trying to focus as much on preserving existing parking as possible. And then concept D was pretty much a throwaway because we blew up someone's rose garden. Apologies for that. So this there's a huge rose garden we didn't know about on the west side, and this concept totally blows that out. So this is the throwaway. So concept, the next slide. We worked with Kimberly and James and came up with a rough idea of how we could merge some of the good features and the different concepts, and we came up with this overall, and it gets better than this. So the next slide is really kind of our encore slide that's missing. There it is. So there we go. So we merged some of the great aspects of each of the concepts, and so I'll kind of go through this. We know you have that large Stevenson Park sign. We want to bring that to the front. So letter A is focusing a large Stevenson Park right along the road. B is an archway, so there's a vertical component that cars can drive through. You enter into that where you see letter C is a water feature, and so you'll have the park sign, maybe the City of Friendswood crest, seal, whatever, with a water wall in the back, and then a water feature basin. Traffic's directed around to the right, so it's one way going around the circle. Where you see letter D, that's proposed amphitheater. Everything's raised and tilted from the southeast going to the northwest. So you have a tilted lawn, event lawn, with a large radial shade structure behind it. As you kind of wrap around, you can see we have parallel parking on both sides. So we're trying to match some of the needs of the parking, but also make it a pedestrian safe area. So if we reduce the vehicular lanes to 15 feet, we still allow emergency access, we still allow people to pass each other, but we also have the parallel parking, which creates sort of a nice barrier between the pedestrian walk and the drive. As you go around, the letter F represents an at-grade splash pad. This would not be a splash pad with plate structures. It'd just be jets bubbling from the base and an overflow weir into another water feature fountain. As you go around to E, we have an upper event lawn, a lower event lawn, and then G is a outdoor plaza space for H, which is the larger amphitheater. I features an outdoor sort of crushed granite dining space with the idea that you may have opportunities for food trucks to enter into the space. J would just be some enhancements to the existing garden. We're proposing potentially, if there's enough room on this side of City Hall, for an optional pedestrian loading space. So that's what L represents. And then when we're walking the site, we walked on the opposite side to check out the rose garden and look towards the building, and there's an opportunity for some type of mural or some type of public art that we may attach to the building. Again, very optional. But this is a great way, I think, of blending what you have existing. Try to maintain as much of the parking. We're trying to squeeze between 39 and 40 spaces with this scheme, and then also have it relate back to City Hall. So I hope I didn't go too fast. If you all have questions, I'm happy to answer. No, we're ready to build it?
You mentioned 49,
39 to 40 spaces.
39 to 40, okay.
Yes, sir.
And so that's around the circle, and then where are the others?
Yes, sir. And I apologize. I mentioned the existing ditch. We'd come back to that. We're proposing to cover that ditch. It's a lot of, it creates, we need to create a seam between the two spaces. We feel that you can utilize, if it's covered, to put the parking spaces over the top.
So the parking spaces would be over the current ditch?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I didn't mention the restroom. I'm sorry. Letter K up in the top right of the plan. It's really centrally located around all of the parking, and it serves as a kind of a good gateway centrally located within the park itself as well.
Alton, you had a question?
You answered it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Would this be concrete parking or is green parking, would that be considered?
Green parking would be considered. What I'd really like to see, how I envision, is maybe concrete in the vehicular ways, the aisle, and then the parking itself may have some type of permeable paving or permeable paver.
Anyone else?
G is an amphitheater or
Oh, I'm
a
sorry.
stage?
G would be event plaza, so that would be a specialty paver.
All right, then H, is that a stage for,
Yes, sir. That would be a
Concerts?
covered stage.
just facing one way, not out to the larger part of the park? Is that correct?
We envision it, I mean, I guess it could be dual purpose. We were kind of envisioning that the roof would have a slant that would match the angle of the turf of the event space, but that's not to say it couldn't serve both directions.
Okay.
If I may,
Yes.
could you just briefly kind of run through kind of the scope of what's being proposed, y'all's scope of services for the board, being that the next item is to potentially act on, potentially for funding.
Sure.
Could you go through what y'all's half and associate scope of services would be and what you guys would produce?
Absolutely.
And then how, if there's public input or whatever it may be,
Sure.
leading up to that point before deliverables are made?
Absolutely. So we've already kind of given you the big part of that scope of work, but we felt it was important enough to show and share the vision and get people excited. So that's really what it's about, is providing for you the vision. We'll provide three-dimensional, not 3D, but bird's eye perspective views. We create a model of this essentially, and so you're gonna get really high-level graphics, and a sample of those for a different park I included if you wanted to see. But then also meet with the board, meet with the city, and take direction. So we're just sort of a hired hand, really good at coming up with concepts and design, but we'll need the city input as well, public input. Does that answer the question?
It answers anything that I have.
Ballpark, is this a $1 million project, a $10 million project, a $30 million project? What are we talking about?
That's another item that's included. We'll begin to really kind of give you that, we call it a magnitude of cost. And so that's the beginning of a cost estimate, but it's more ballpark level. But in my gut, I think it's anywhere between a 10 million and 15 million. Economy of scale here, you can spend millions on an amphitheater or you can spend hundreds of thousands on an amphitheater. So it's really what all you want to include in the project itself.
Dr.
Yes, ma'am.
Hillenburg?
If the amphitheater were not there, what would you choose to put in that spot?
Oh, that's a tough one. I need to think about that one.
And then that leads to my next question, which is the use of the amphitheater down in Centennial Park.
Yeah.
And do we need two amphitheaters and how much of it used? I mean, I'm just trying to gather information, and that's not a question for you.
Right.
That's a question for the city or for KFB. And, oh, sorry. Yeah, not only am I congested, you can't hear me. Sorry. Hi, Mr. Tony.
Hi, James Tony, Parks and Rec. To answer your question, the amphitheater serves as another location for us, a plan B, because as you know, when we have our events in the park, Sound in the Park, concerts, 4th of July, we potentially get rained out. And for when we get rained out, we have to have a plan B, and plan B, that serves as our plan B to be able to continue along with our programming.
Changes. Thank you.
Perfect.
Since this is a workshop, has this already been presented to KFB? Okay, you've already seen all this. Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
I do like the aspect of covering over the ditch and using that for parking. And did you consider a design which would put more parking in front, closer to Friendswood Drive, and not the round parking area, and use that more as a park space,
Take the
green park
vehicular-
space, not parking lot space?
Understood. Yeah. That's definitely something we could work through. I think what I'm hearing is potentially put more traditional parking on the south and keep the green space green. And there's nothing wrong with that. Another thought we had was potentially, instead of closing the ditch, flipping the parking to the east side of the access road so it faces towards City Hall. We were kind of opposed to that because then you're encouraging a lot of people across that road. However, it can be done. So those are some value engineering type strategies we could look at. But to answer your question, shooting from the hip, I would take all the at-grade splash components and move it to where the amphitheater is.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Moving along to item 4, business items. Consider authorizing an agreement with Keep Friendswood Beautiful Incorporated to fund the Stevenson Park Conceptual Design Plan. We have
So what's been proposed here by Half and Associates, Keep Friendswood Beautiful, is a conceptual plan that they've discussed in the workshop here. There has been an agreement drawn up to allow the FDEDC to fund, enter into an agreement with KFB and to fund the $13,500, which is what the proposal is for. The outline proposal was sent to the board to take a look at and review. It is nothing that is beyond the standard scope of services for a type of proposal like this. And so the amount is $13,500 for the deliverables that were mentioned, with conceptual plans, potential cost estimates as best as they can get at this point, along with meeting with city staff, with the boards, and then the taking public input and kind of moving all that together and molding a conceptual plan for next door.
Why are we being asked to do this? To fund it? Why are we being asked to fund this?
So I can't speak for KFB and what their total request is. However, I will let you know that previously, kind of going back to the history of the arch and how to potentially spruce up next door, staff did ask Keep Friendswood Beautiful and others to kind of visit with each other to try to find an ultimate vision, so there wasn't just different groups trying to take different bites at the pie. And in doing so, sometimes getting everyone together and having one big conceptual plan is a benefit. And so to do that, though, it does take funding. So this $13,500 is not something that Keep Friendswood Beautiful or any of the other groups necessarily have in their coffers in order to fund themselves. And so I did direct them to potentially come and visit with the EDC, as it is within your purview to fund, should you choose to do so.
If we did choose to do so, would it require council approval?
We'll go to council.
So we're not the final decision maker.
That's correct. And much like any of the other funding decisions that have been made, whether both for professional services, if you'll think back to the electrical engineering work that HDR did for the group, it gets approved here first and then moves on for a subsequent council action to be discussed.
In light of our sidewalk improvement project, well, try to keep my voice up. That's not working. It is?
There you go.
How about that? It doesn't seem like that much money, but in light of our curb and sidewalk project, we kind of need every little bit we can get. Is it going to have any impact on that?
This would have zero impact on the sidewalk project that's currently underway or almost complete. What this would do is expend $13,500 potentially as you're looking for future projects. So that would be an amount, and it has not, it's on the agenda here later, but the financial report this past month, I mean, the group is consistently anywhere between $55,000 and $65,000 a month being brought in. So just to give you some, missing the word here, but just
So it's
thank you,
affordable?
some perspective.
It's affordable within the projects we have going?
Yes, sir.
So go ahead, Dr. Hillenburg.
Do we have a timeline on this? Have they given us a projection of when it might be, not the project completed, but the design completed? I'm sorry. When might be the timeline for the completion of the design?
I assume I have to come all the way up here to answer
Yes,
that.
sir, please.
Sorry.
The completion will be contingent on the idea of separating the parking. We've already given you, I think, a really good concept. We'll come up with another concept, and then we'll get public input from that. So it'd probably take us 2-3 weeks just to get another concept generated.
Right.
And then public comment, I'm thinking 3 meetings, probably no more than 2 to 3 months overall.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to point out, thinking back, when Mr. Cox went to the state, one of the things that impressed them was that we did have a plan.
Yes.
So,
Madam President, are we going to make a motion and decide on this tonight, do you expect?
you directed that to me, but
You are still the president. I am
Well-
just your proxy.
he's kindly filling that in for me because I have bronchitis.
Can I make a statement?
Yes, please, Paul.
I like the idea. I think something really needs to be done with that. I think it's a great idea. However, I personally feel that we ought to look at this a little deeper before we make that decision and that commitment.
Can I say something? Are you through?
Yes.
I applaud this effort. I think it is good. I agree with Mr. Marks. Right now, we are fully consumed with streetlights and signs and sidewalks, and I don't want to lose focus on that. However, I don't want to lose the momentum we have going in with future projects falling right behind the one we're working on now. And that's why I was interested in your timing question. And I know in the grand scheme of things, $13,500 is not a lot of money, but I think we still have to fund the illumination part and buying the poles and lights and stuff. I mean, that's not paid for yet. Go ahead.
If we were to commit to the 13,500, we don't know what our commitment might be beyond that. And that does concern me because right now we have the lighting and as Bubba has very well lined out. So that's just a concern of mine.
Well, what happens if we don't fund it?
Yeah.
It would either not happen or the groups would have to seek funding elsewhere.
I also applaud this design and concept. I think it looks beautiful, but to my fellow committee members, I don't think we should commit our funds to this because we have a plan. And here is our plan that we've been working on for several years. $13,000 in the scheme of things isn't much, but remember, a year ago, someone approached us about doing something with the Historical Society and then moving an oak tree, and now we're a magnitude of order higher than that with funds requested. It's a little bit of mission creep. I think it's complementary to our mission, but I think we need to stick to our plan. And if you can find this, if you save things like I do, I mean, all the big projects and little projects were laid out by Lauren Griffith, and there's a couple little ones in there like storefront branding, pedestrian artistic enhancements, bicycle trails that 13,500 would advance. So I feel that we should be very cautious about deviating from our vision and our plan with this right now. I still like the concept, but the other thing, remember when we started, we were always very careful about not doing things which would give the appearance of benefiting a certain business along Friendswood Drive. And we wanted our efforts to improve the whole from north to south of Friendswood Drive, and we are meeting that so far. This is very, very focused, very concentrated, and as Alton alluded to, okay, we spend $13,500 now. Well, if the thing goes forward and it's a, I don't know, $5 or $10 million project, they may come back to our group and say, gee whiz, wouldn't you like to fund this? So we got to remember our plan and fulfill that, in my opinion. Thank you.
I'm going to turn the coin over
Okay.
and just say that if our 13, and I say it in terms of ours, but it's everybody's, $13,500 moves this project, which I think is a great project, forward and gets things moving and gives the other organizations that are involved in it opportunities to do fundraising because they have a plan. And like I pointed out, having that plan is what brought us that $3 million from the state.
Exactly.
They could go to the state possibly with that plan, and then it becomes their baby. And it's not our baby. And we're not adopting it by giving them $13,500. We're just helping it along. Just another perspective.
Alton?
I agree with you, Rebecca. And actually, Pat, the park is very much a part of our Main Street. It's not an isolated business. It's you talk about beautification, and that's part of what we're trying to do with Main Street. Our park is probably the best thing, good-looking thing we have on Main Street. And while I'm with you, I'm concerned about may there be other requests, and there might be, and we can say no. But this doesn't seem like that much money that we should have to worry about it to keep the momentum going that a lot of hard work has gone into an obvious thought, and it really looks good to me. Just my thought.
And let's keep in mind, this is just to help fund a plan.
Yeah.
We're not digging any dirt, or anything else. And if that helps KFB along with obtaining additional funding from other sources, I think I'm in favor for it.
You know, another thing too, and I don't mean to jump in here, but I guess
Go
I
ahead.
am,
Yeah.
is it still takes council approval. It's not like we're making all the decision.
Yeah.
And council may have a totally different attitude toward it. That's why they get the big bucks.
Yeah.
It seemed like a worthy thing to me, and I agree with Becca. Got to start with a plan.
And then you can go put it out there for people to decide what they want to do or how they can fund it. No plan, no opportunity. Do you
So,
want-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Stephen, what is the next step for this group now?
You guys would have to have a motion and then have a vote, and then it would move forward from there.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion for the funding request in the amount of $13,500 for KFB.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Nay.
Show one opposed. Stephen, can you get us on the calendar for city council?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Next item on the agenda is business item, considering, oh, that's what we just did. Discuss and take possible action regarding RFP 2022-10, FM 518 illumination installation.
So, real quick, just congratulations to the board. We've made it this far, so congrats. This has been a long time coming for this RFP, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank board member Paul Marks for helping out with this, with completing the RFP, getting it put together before we advertised it. His help was greatly appreciated by city staff. We'll let you know that in late May, we did receive 2 submissions. Both were Texas companies, both were semi-local. City staff reviewed them for their completeness, and the lowest bid for the entire project, so let's just keep in mind the entire project, FM 2351 all the way to Whispering Pines, for the 18-foot tall pedestrian poles, the 32-foot tall both pedestrian / automobile illumination poles, street lighting, and everything that goes along with it turnkey, was low bid $3.98 million. And the just to let you guys know that we were actually pleasantly surprised because honestly we thought it was going to be a little bit more than that. We did, after speaking with city staff, and Hill, feel free to jump in at any point. For those of you who don't know, Hill Arias, he's our director of engineering. He was paramount in getting this moved forward and getting it out. We have, say we, the collective we again, FDEDC has about $2.6 million in the bank. The 3.98 is obviously a little bit more than that. However, we have reached out to those that have submitted, and they are willing to enter into some discussions with us regarding a scaled back project and trying to get us a project that can be brought back to FDEDC that is within whatever the current amount of funding is available at that time. We did specify in the RFP that the budget was going to be $2.5 million, and so they're aware that we're going to come back and discuss it with them. So that being said, there's a couple of ways this can go. Is if it is lock, stock, and barrel that FDEDC is dead set on a full project, and you do not want to move forward with either one of these because you just want to wait, then you can reject both the bids, and we just move on, and we can potentially have another RFP in the future. If you would choose to have a scaled back project, I would like some direction for city staff on what that project would look like. And then we can enter in a negotiation or discussion with the low bidder and to see if they would entertain a scaled back project and for what prices that would be.
If it's a scaled back project, and that looks like that's what we have money for,
Yeah.
does it effectively become 2 projects would need another bid proposal?
That would be correct. In this instance, so the project that would be determined if we move forward with a scaled back project, that would be a project one. And so that one would be start to finish completed. You would have to have a full scale, another project, another RFP potentially for the second approach to that. In this instance, the scale back project can be all of one type of pole potentially, or a mixture of poles, or some of it will depend on the electrical engineering that goes along with it and how the wires must be run in order to power certain things. Some of the conversations that staff has had is potentially choosing to do all of the pedestrian poles, the smaller 18-foot poles first, basically just because it kind of runs in alignment with the sidewalk project that is now almost complete. So you would have what would seem to be two completed projects, one for pedestrian walkways and some pedestrian lighting that accents that as well, and then hopefully run as much of the electrical wire and other items that are needed to, whenever funding does become available, then it's just a matter of funding the taller 32-foot poles. That's just an idea, but some direction, if whichever way you would like to go, we are happy to enter into some discussions with the low bidder and then bring it back to the board and then for potential action.
Go ahead.
At the current rate where we're receiving tax funds, it would take us about 4 more years to get up to 3.9 million. Is that about right?
We are currently anywhere between $55,000 and $65,000 a month that's being brought in. So yeah, it would take. This group has been here since 2016, and there's currently about 2.7 in the bank. So that's been about 6 years. So it's slowly but surely it is there.
And my second question, I mean, the two bids were $11,000 difference. For other technical reasons, did the staff also decide that the low bid company was the best choice?
Low bid, and then based upon both companies were great, but low bid along with relevant experience and the location of the low bid is also just a stone's throw from the city, so that took that checked the box for us as well.
So who was the low bid?
It was
Pfeiffer.
It's called Pfeiffer. They're I believe out of LaPorte.
And who was the other?
Traffic control systems, I believe.
One of the-
That's correct. Traffic Systems Construction.
System, yeah.
My
McGinnis?
impression, looking at the bids and then going to their websites, the traffic construction systems, I mean, they are like expressway. I mean, that seems to be their niche, the Beltway and I-10 and big expressway related projects. When I looked at Pfeiffer and Sons and, read their list of projects, it was more like what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I felt like, okay, there's a match there in the niche. The other thing that really impressed me was, I forget the portions like strategies and timeline. So for scaled traffic construction, it was, 9 bullet points on a half a page. For Pfeiffer, it was 13 points with a small paragraph over 3 pages, and one really stuck out to me. There was a comment about we could pull all the wire at once for efficiency's sake and leave it curled up, but you're at risk that the wire would be stolen. I thought that was such a nuanced detail that here's a company that is paying attention to the little things, just like we are to have a successful project. So that gave me a very strong feeling towards that company.
Go ahead.
Does this include the luminaires is this just labor and foundations only?
No, sir. This is.
It does include the cost of
Yes, sir.
lights? Okay.
Just for perspective, the tall. Let's see, the tall roadway poles. were anywhere, depending on which bid, anywhere between $17,000, $18,000 a piece. So it kind of gives you a scale of when you have 93 of those, just kind of the amount of money that's going into it. But
Okay.
yes, sir, they are included. They're in the
'Cause
bid tabs.
We had talked about labor only for the drill shafts, for the foundations, and then labor to, and pull the wire, and then set the lights on the foundations.
And so if given the direction to, that would be some of the discussions that we would have is the potential for which types of poles that may be installed, but then if we can get more bang for the buck on pulling all of the wire or potentially doing other work, drill shafts, foundations, even if since we already know the pole, things like that, that's something that can be discussed as well and see what kind of final numbers come up.
Okay. Go ahead, Alden.
Yeah, it sounds like we, from necessity, probably have to do the scale back, but
Yeah.
isn't that a new project requiring new bidding?
No, sir. In this sense, this would be a part of this RFP that we have here currently, and we would negotiate that, get that number approved by the board and ultimately by council. This was all would run as part of this project.
But that's not the same project everybody bid on,
It is, so everyone bid on the same project,
but not the scale back.
but not to scale back.
You sure we can do that?
I trust Karen implicitly.
All right, so I guess the direction we're hearing is give us some options for some the scale back version. And Dr. Hillenburg, you want to say something?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, we have our 2.5 million. We don't have any opportunities to find the other 1.5 million, do we? Or do we? I mean, I don't know what we can do with city council, or if we can ask them to, supplement and make up the difference, or if I'm just throwing something out there for us to think about. Do we have a possible another funding source, like KFP came to us for a funding source? Do we have any other way that we could raise the rest of it?
Off just the shooting from the hip, the potential for much like the sidewalk project is that you do have a plan in place and it is moving forward. There's potential for additional funding maybe from one of the state agencies whenever they have either a call for projects or much like the sidewalk project where they just kind of came out of thin air when you got lucky. There is, you can always have a request made to city council. However, you take your chances with that as well.
Oh, yeah. And their budget is very tight.
That's correct.
And we have to respect that. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that is there another way? So I'm hearing probably not.
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait 3 years.
Wait 3 years. But that's what it's going to be anyway, till we get the money.
Yeah.
So then we need to look at the scale back project in terms of, do we want the pedestrian poles or do we want the high poles for those 3 years? And there's safety questions there, illumination, things like that.
So is the direction for staff to come back or get with the vendor and come back with some scale back options that we can look at, possibly going with just the pedestrian side first and see how far we can get along with pulling the wires and the other things in that scale back project?
Yes, so if, whichever the direction you would like to give staff, if a motion can be made to go and enter in discussions with the low bidder, and we will bring back a project within the range of the FDEDC funding, and then it can progress from there.
Okay. That needs to be made in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir, that would be,
Oh,
that would
Lord,
be
I can't
helpful.
remember everything you just said.
I move that we have staff enter into an agreement with Pfeiffer and Sons, the low bid, to discuss scaled back options for us to accomplish this project. Is that clear enough for? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion's been made. A second?
I'll second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion on the motion? Yes, sir?
we've also talked about the scale in terms of, starting what we call the heart of downtown, or the heart. So maybe not only certain poles, but a certain area to begin with. So please add that into your discussion options.
Good call. Yes,
Yeah.
Dr. Hillenburg?
And if that influences the use of our money, if they say, well, to start in the middle and go out will be more expensive than to start at one end or the other, I'd like that information too.
More of a question, will our staff be able to, with a scale back program, to see, is this true value within what the original bid was? See what I'm talking about? If we get something that's scaled back, but let's say it's 40% of whatever that was, well, we paid more. I'm concerned about someone trying to maximize with a scale back project.
Sure, we have received some assurances from the vendors that they would hold firm on the prices that are there, at least to a certain threshold, and so that will be cognizant when staff visits with the vendors for sure.
I feel like we're buying a car, it just doesn't have any tires.
You wanted tires for that, yeah. All right, any further discussion on the motion? Good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Showed as unanimous. Next item on the agenda is reports. Receive and discuss the TxDOT curbs, ramps, sidewalks, and traffic signals project report.
Thank you, sir. So just to be brief, I'm sure many of you have seen it as you've been up and down. The majority of sidewalk construction is complete. There are very few areas that are remaining, and most of those are going to be just little small items in order to either adjust meter tops or to do something with that is in that pertains to the mast arms, things like that. So some brick pavers, a little bit of concrete work. There are the mast arms and signals. If you've probably seen those installed as well, they are up at all the intersections. The signals themselves are up at the intersections. They've got the covers on them to keep any damage from taking place, and the field wiring is taking place. If you've probably been interrupted with your commute here and there based on with the traffic controls they have in place, but they're making quick work. Two things to note that are still very visible. There's two driveways, I believe that's it currently, that are waiting for completion due to gas line depth. When they went out and uncovered and tore out the old driveways, it was discovered that there was, I believe it's a 2-inch gas line that in one case over, I believe it's Captain's Corner, was right underneath the asphalt as cars were driving over it anyway. And so they were not going to go back in with a driveway on top of it. And so the request has been made to CenterPoint by TxDOT and their contractor to lower that gas line in order for the installation of those driveways, which should be coming shortly. I have seen, I believe, the gas line in the right-of-way waiting, so hopefully it happens sooner than later.
Awesome.
Do you have a contact who you're working with at CenterPoint?
I do not, but we can hunt it down for sure because it would have gone through TxDOT.
Okay. I can track that down.
Trust me, it's not lost that we have a man in the room.
I was going to fill you guys in on a little bit of information that I have to pass along. We did find out, get word from the contractor that's in that he's wanting to start boring tomorrow. So they're much closer than we anticipated.
Good. Okay. All right. Anything else, Stephen?
No, sir.
Reports 6B, receive and discuss Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation financial report for May 2022.
Thank you, sir. Briefly for May 2022, the beginning fund balance for the group was $2,614,391 with a healthy revenue of $72,219. There was no expenditures outside of the standard amount that's paid to the city for staff services. So your ending fund balance for May 2022 is $2,685,275.
Perfect. But we don't need a motion to accept the financial
sir.
report. Okay. The next item is adjourn. Before we do that, I would like to do, in the past, we've gone around the room here and asked if anybody wants to make comments. And if nobody does, that's fine, but I'm going to. Since Dr. Hillenburg gave me the mic.
So just a heads,
Yes.
and you may have not have been at the meeting where it was discussed previously. This is now from council down to planning commission and for all the groups, just giving comments of something that's not listed on the agenda is something that we no longer have the ability to do. So if there is something, a comment that or about anything on the agenda, you can pass it through either myself or through Dr. Hillenburg, and I can get it on an agenda. But no longer is there a standard, just kind of communications from the board type
Consider my hand slapped.
Oh, I got mine slapped.
item.
What if it relates to a previous agenda item?
That item's already been discussed.
I think he was only going to remind everybody that A&M was in the College World Series.
He in the College World Series, yes. I do not have my Aggie shirt on today, but I should. All right, the next item on the agenda is adjourn. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Showed is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.